Welcome in to another episode of the Armchair Illini podcast. My name's Alex G, owner of Armchair Illini. We're here to recap a very beautiful weekend in Illinois land. Whether it's the men's basketball team or the women's basketball team, the Illini are clicking on all cylinders. The men's basketball team is headed to the Sweet 16 after winning its first two games versus Penn and VCU, respectively. And Illinois women's basketball, who is currently in Nashville, just won their first round matchup last night versus Colorado, and they will play Vanderbilt in Nashville, Tennessee on Monday. So, round of 32 matchup for the Illinois women's basketball team. We're here to talk about it all and recap a very fun night in Champaign and for all Illini fans spread out across the country. I'm joined by my very good friend, Austin Burklund. Austin, what's good, man? How are you? What'd you think about the night, and what'd you think about this first weekend for Illinois?
I mean, I'm doing really well. It was the night that Josh Whitman kind of promised of we will win between Shauna Green and Brad Underwood, both picking up big wins in the NCAA tournament. And it just feels like the Illinois momentum has never been stronger compared to what this used to be under the likes of Mike Thomas. So it just feels amazing that the Illini are in this position, both in the men's side and on the women's side. It just is a sweet feeling, pardon the pun.
Yeah, we love that pun. I do have some stats for us. The Illinois Athletics Twitter account, social media pages posted a really cool graphic kind of highlighting both Brad Underwood, Brett Bielema, and Shauna Green. All three have done really, really remarkable turnarounds. In terms of Underwood, in the past 7 seasons, not counting his first 2 seasons, obviously because it was a rebuild, 165 and 70, 96 and 44 in Big Ten play, which is just insanely good. When you look at John Gross, who was there for about 7 years, 95 and 75, 37 and 53 in the Big Ten. So a major upgrade in terms of Brad Underwood and just raising the ceiling. You're consistently contending for Big Ten titles. You've made two Sweet 16s in the past 3 seasons, which is awesome. Every year, you're consistently in the NCAA tournament, getting good seeds. We haven't been on the bubble yet, which is, I think, amazing. You feel like under Gross, you're on the bubble. And then not only that, but you're on the wrong side of the bubble at the end. Brett Bielema, 37 and 26. Football, there's a lot of context to be had. It's building a roster of 120 players. It's, coming from where Illinois was under Lovie Smith. There's overcoming that. Lovie Smith really put us in a pretty deep hole there, if you will. 37 and 26. Lovie Smith was 17 and 39. And then you talk about all those blowouts that happened, whether it was losing to Iowa on your home field, 63-0. None of those blowouts have seemed to happen under Brett Bielema. Obviously, you have a few, whether you're playing Ohio State on the road, things like that. But just really raised the floor, and recruiting is as good as it's ever been. They've brought in their best recruiting class. They're fighting for top transfer portal targets. So again, Brett Bielema has done an outstanding job, and we lose sight of that because of Kurt Signetti and what he's done at Indiana. But Brett Bielema has been just as impressive, in my opinion. Then Shauna Green, she doesn't get as much attention because women's basketball isn't as popular as some of these revenue sports. But women's basketball, growing game, and Shauna Green has done a really historic turnaround. 85 and 46 in her 5 seasons, 39 and 33 in the Big Ten, where this program was. And I was talking with Brian Teague, Chicago State of Mind Sports. When I was a student, women's basketball was just, it was like something from the closet. You know what I mean? So Nancy Fahey, 42 and 99 in her few seasons with Illinois women's basketball before Shauna Green, 7 and 77 in Big Ten play. And now you're getting 7 Big Ten wins, annually, consistently. And if you get that, that's a bad season for Shauna Green. And that was the total. So all three hires have been home runs, in my opinion, and Josh Whitman has made due on his promise. And kudos to all three staff.
I mean, the fact, like, we'll start with the women's program. I know we'll get a lot into this Illinois VCU game, but I just want to shout out her. This is the youngest team in the NCAA tournament field, and for her to get a victory with the youngest team in the field, that's incredible as well. And just the recruiting that Shauna Green has done has just been incredible as well. I mean, this was a program that was just lucky to get local Central Illinois kids under Nancy Fahey to buy into this program, and now we're going internationally, similar to what Brad Underwood has done. We are recruiting at such a high level statewide, where you're getting 4 to 5 star type of caliber girls to come and buy into this program. It's just a kudos to her on what she's able to have these players buy into, and what she's developed these players into in such a short amount of time, let alone those injuries that have happened over her her tenure. I mean, every single year it feels like we've had a headline that says, "Oh, player A, player B, and player C, they're going to be out for the year with ACL injuries." And somehow Shauna Green has still found a way to win every single year that she's been at the University of Illinois.
Yeah, super fun team to watch. Like you said, they're very young, but they got some really, really fun personalities to watch. So tune in if you guys haven't been tuning in to the women's basketball team, as they'll play Monday versus second seed Vanderbilt. But the team is so much fun to watch. I mean, you look at Destiny Jackson, 5-star point guard out of Chicago. They really sold Io DeSumo when they were recruiting her, and I think that's really paid off. She looks like a future star in the Big Ten. Sierra Parchment is just a freshman, but she's dropping 21 points almost consistently. Barry Wallace is kind of that the yin to the yang of Sierra Parchment and Destiny Jackson. She's very low key, she's very quiet, very humble, but she consistently drops really, really good games, despite having a old broken nose and wearing a mask. And then you have girls like Maddie Weber, who's coming off the bench, playing really, really well. So this team is super, super fun to watch, and for some people that I've talked to, they actually like Illinois at giving Vanderbilt quite a good shot. So be sure to tune in and keep tuning in. And Shauna Green has done a really good job just getting fans to come and support. And slowly, you see this team start to build up towards the upper half of the Big Ten. So really, really impressive. And if you haven't been tuned in, be sure to tune into them.
Absolutely.
Yeah, and Brett Bielema, we don't really need to talk about that. That one's going really well as well, in terms of selling out Memorial Stadium. If you told me when I was a student that we were selling out Memorial Stadium, it would have been like a major shock. So shout out to the class of 2017. Illini fans, if you're new here, be sure to like this video and subscribe to our YouTube channel. Really appreciate all you guys. And shout out to Campus Inc., the official NIL store, for sponsoring this and helping me out with this Andrej Stojakovic shirt. Do want to shout out Andrej Stojakovic, though, and head into our talk about VCU. What were some of your thoughts about the win? Obviously, the first half was very tough, but Andrej Stojakovic went on a little personal 9-0 run. What did you think about last night's win?
Last night felt like you had to match the energy that VCU was kind of presenting in the second half. And in the first half, you were getting death by a thousand paper cuts. There was a lot of missed shots. There was a lot of runouts by VCU. They were really physical in your face, guard wise. I mean, they couldn't really handle the height that Illinois had, of course, but they were getting into the guards. They were making the guards' job very difficult. Keaton Wagler had what, 1 point in the first half, so it felt like that VCU was dictating the terms of the game. And then in the second half, it felt like in a halftime, Brad Underwood was like, "Hey guys, we need to just match this energy. If the referees aren't going to call these scrappy calls, and let's dig into them." And that's what Illinois did. And they went downhill. They presented some turnovers. I mean, Ben Hummerkaus was huge in that early part of that second half where he was getting some big time turnovers and really helping the Illini establish that distance in the game. So I really appreciated the way that Brad Underwood adjusted. I know that's been a big time bugaboo of the Brad Underwood tenure, is him being like, "Hey, we're gonna do what we do." And it felt like they kind of switched it up a little bit defensively by being like, "Hey, we're going to get up into these guys. We're going to try to create some turnovers," and really that was what changed the momentum of this game into being a, "Hey, maybe VCU can hang around by 5 or 6 points," to an Illinois blowout.
Yeah, I mean, VCU is a tough team to beat, and I think they did a really good job of kind of previewing what the University of Houston's going to do to you. They pressured Keaton Wagler 94 feet consistently. They threw multiple bodies at him. That's what Keaton Wagler is going to face anytime he plays a good team. And I'm more than confident that's similar to what's going to happen when Illinois plays Houston on Thursday. VCU, unfortunately, like we said in our preview, they don't really have the size to match up. Lazar Djokovic, he also struggled, didn't have a single field goal, had 2 points on two free throws. But other than that, the front court of VCU really struggled. And a lot of it came from their guards, whether it was rebounding the ball, shots made. Terrence Hill had a decent game. But again, I think, like you said, they made some nice adjustments in terms of getting Keaton off of the ball in terms of getting Kylan Boswell to bring the ball up, Davin Merkovich, and they were just really, really sound defensively. And that was the first time that I thought that they let their defense kind of be the stable part of their game. And whatever the defense did, their offense fed off of that. Whether it was a VCU turnover, whether it was poor shot by VCU, things like that, they got out and ran, and they got downhill. So I thought it was a really, really good game plan in terms of adjusting. And once Brad saw VCU's guards really going after offensive rebounds, he made the point that once you do grab the rebound, you're throwing it forward and getting ahead. And Andrej Stojakovic was absolutely perfect for that. And he was the one that really stopped the bleeding because VCU took a 2 point lead, heading into the latter parts of the first half. But he kept going downhill. He kept ramming. And that's when Andrej Stojakovic is at his best, is when he's attacking the paint. And, when they aren't able to draw a second defender onto him because Illinois has such great shooters and Ivisic and Merkovich and Jake Davis, Hummerkaus, what have you. Then when you're just one on one with Stojakovic, it's a really, really beneficial kind of spacing for Andre. So 21 points, 7 of 12 from the field, and 7 of 9 from the free throw line, 4 rebounds in 26 minutes. You'll take that from Andre Stojakovic, and he was outstanding in the win.
Yeah, and I mean, only one turnover with all the needs that Illinois had from Andrej this game. He was protecting the basketball. That's kind of been a thing that Andrej hasn't done the best job of at times throughout this season. There's been some lackadaisical turnovers by Andrej, but this game, he took care of the basketball. He was efficient with it. He was scoring the basketball, and he also got some rebounds. He had 4 defensive rebounds and only 2 fouls. So the game outside of his shooting was also very phenomenal as well. So I think Andrej this was a game where you paid the big bucks for Andrej in the transfer portal, and he was very, very, very much needed, especially with Keaton Wagler having his struggles to get downhill because he just doesn't have that physicality that Andrej possesses and that maturity that Andrej possesses.
And I do want to shout out one person, Tomislav Ivisic. That was Tomislav Ivisic's best game in quite some time. 14 points, 11 rebounds. I think it was perfect because he just kept it simple. His shot is still kind of struggling a little bit. It's a little bit flat. You see him miss short on a lot, but he rebounded really well. He set really good screens, and he didn't do anything that he wasn't supposed to do, which I think he's been kind of struggling. He just played free, and he didn't look as tense. And I think that was a big qualm that I had in the past couple weeks where he just looked like he was in his own head, but he played really, really free. And I think he was the key in that first half, even though he got 2 fouls. The way that he was able to rebound and just wall up against the VCU guards was absolutely perfect. They were really going after Merkovich, and Merkovich certainly got frustrated. So you needed one of the Ivisic brothers to step up. And I thought Tommy did a really, really good job. But I do have to ask you, speaking of the Ivisic brothers, Zvonimir Ivicic's poster versus Andrej Stojakovic's poster. Obviously, Zvonimir's got a little bit more attention because he had the block on Lazar Djokovic, and then he ran down the floor and threw one down basically from the free throw line. But Andrej Stojakovic had a pretty good poster as well. Which one did you like better and why?
I think I like Big Z's better just because it's tough for as a 7 footer to make a dunk look cool, and he did that. So I think that level of difficulty adds up. But Andrej was kind of like a momentum shift in and of itself. It was like, hey, we're not going to just be taking those threes. We're going to be driving in, and you guys better be ready for the physicality that's about to come from me. And that kind of set his offense into motion. It was a big momentum shift even in Andrej's own mind coming off the bench. So I think from a momentum side, Andrej is meant more, but from like a pure entertainment, if I'm a dunk contest judge, I think I got to give it to Big Z.
Yeah, I agree. I think Andres was kind of unexpected because he threw it down like kind of off the dribble, and Z's was on the fast break, so it was more of a highlight. What was your favorite moment of the first weekend in which Illinois won its first 2 games by a combined margin of 56 points?
In the entirety of the NCAA tournament or just
Uh,
the
just in
Illinois
this
side?
in these first 2 games.
In the first 2 games, I think I've got to go with Merck's just tenacity in that Penn game. I think that really is a we talk about tone setting, we talk about momentum in the NCAA tournament. I think that really set the tone of, hey, if you don't you don't have to be a senior to be a leader on this team. And the Merck as a freshman doing that against Penn, it was just incredible. And I thought it was going to do a little bit something for his second game, but the refereeing was a lot to be desired in this game, where they kind of allowed VCU to be way more physical than the Illini, where there were some of the Illini cheap shots that weren't getting called, and then the Illini just did a minor thing, and then that would have been a foul. So it was a very inconsistent whistle that the Illini overcame. So I think Merck's Penn game, though, was probably my moment of this first weekend for the Illini.
Yeah, I think the VCU game honestly exercised a lot of demons that Illinois has had. We've talked a lot about on the show how they've not been able to step on other teams' throats when they have the lead. We talk about when maybe the momentum shifts in the other direction. They get a little bit flustered, things like that. You look at the UCLA game, you look at the two Wisconsin losses, particularly in the Big Ten tournament when teams were making a run, they kind of, lost their principles and let things kind of bleed, if you will. But that wasn't the case last night. Like I said, when VCU took a 2 point lead, you thought, oh, this is going to be a dogfight. VCU kind of looked like they were more physical. And I think we were texting too. It's just, they simply just looked more athletic, more physical. But Andrej Stojakovic put the team on his back, put his head down, got to the rim, and that was perfect. Because you think about a couple weeks ago, this team probably would have started launching some threes, things like that. Had some turnovers, what have you, but they really locked in and just kept it simple on the defensive end, and simply said, "Hey, if you make a shot over us, that's fine, but we're not going to make it easy for you." And I think ultimately that's what caught up to VCU. And then in the second half, they never let their foot off the gas. VCU actually came back from a 19-point deficit in the prior game. So I was thinking, this team has a chance to really, really, put their foot on their necks and get to a point where AJ Red can play, Blake Fagbani could play, Mihailo Petrovic can play, and they got to that. So I was really proud of this team in that regard. And now you look at the Sweet 16, they got their work cut out for them. But I do want to shout out Brad Underwood because there's been a lot of criticism over the past few weeks, especially, and over the past couple years of his tenure about how he is, you know, not really maximizing his teams and maybe having a round of 32 exit when you're expected to go a little bit further, whether that's maybe not adjusting in a certain way or having a lot of ups and downs throughout the season, which leave fans wanting more, or being mad about lack of adjustments, lack of defensive adjustments, things like that. But two Sweet 16s in 3 years, I don't want fans to really take that for granted because that's really, really hard to do. And Brad Underwood has done that, and I think he's really deserved all the praise that he's getting now.
And I think 2 years ago, I think a lot of fans were like, but he did it with Terrence Shannon Jr. And Terrence Shannon Jr. had a lot of the weight carried on him during the NCAA tournament. This year, I think it's a Brad Underwood special, him getting to this group to the Sweet 16. There's a lot of adjustments that had to be made throughout this entire year with Kylan Boswell's hand injury. There's been a lot of various illnesses, various crazy issues with health throughout this season. And it feels like Brad Underwood has withstood a lot of the hurricanes outside of the final stretch run of this regular season. And for him to recapture that momentum, this could have easily been like a Wisconsin team where it just whimpered into the night in the NCAA tournament, but he didn't. He allowed the best players to play, like Andrej Stojakovic doing what he did last night. So it really feels like Brad Underwood has captured the heart and soul of this team, and that's something that he may not have been able to do in some of those round of 32 or round of 64 losses. So the ability for his team to rally around him and rally around each other has just been a great thing to see, especially with how diverse this lineup is compared to where everyone's coming from. These guys don't really know each other. Kylan Boswell had no reason to know who Big Z was outside of maybe a weekend hangout with Tommy. I mean, that's just the awesome side of this team that they've been able to have that chemistry just grow so much where everyone trusts each other to do what they need to do in these crucial situations.
Yeah, I mean, to go off of your point, this team is becoming really likable. They have a lot of fun personalities. David Berkovich is becoming a media a lover, if you will. Keaton Wagler is so cool, calm, and collected. The Ivisic brothers are always fun, and Kylan and Andre, they're kind of bringing that kind of West Coast vibe, if you will. So honestly, there's a lot of sort of comparisons that you could make to the 23-24 team in terms of the path that they had to get there. They beat a 14 seed that wasn't really all that great, and they won their tournament, things like that, in Morehead State. And then now they beat the A10 championships or champions, if you will, Duquesne and VCU. So knock on wood that Illinois can also get past a Big 12 opponent in Houston, like they did versus Iowa State a couple
I
years
think
ago.
Iowa State was number 2 in the Big 12 as well.
Exactly. So there are a lot of parallels. We'll certainly be previewing the Houston game as much as we can because that should be a really, really good one. But yeah, like you said, he's really, really recruited to a good level. And I think the reason that I was always so not really upset, but kind of skeptical of all the different criticisms, especially looking at the end of the season. Obviously, they lost 4 games out of their last 9 or 5 games out of their last 9, what have you. And there's certainly some legitimate criticisms in terms of they shouldn't have lost the UCLA game. They shouldn't have lost the Wisconsin game. But fans were really writing Brad Underwood and this team off, which I thought was really unfair. Again, like Nate Oates' team that went to the Final Four, they lost basically 4 of their last 6 games to end the season, including the SEC tournament. So it's never they can't do it. If you get hot in March and if you get hot in the NCAA tournament, you get a good draw, you can go all the way down. And would you rather have Wisconsin's season or Illinois season right now? You know what I mean? Because Wisconsin ended off their season really, really good. They beat Purdue at Mackey. They beat Michigan at Chrysler. They made a run in the Big Ten tournament. They almost beat Michigan. But then, like you said, they got upset by a 12 seed. So would you rather have that or would you rather have what Illinois has? I think a lot of fans would say they'd rather have Illinois right now. So at least that's what I think. Do you think that?
Oh, absolutely. I mean, I don't see a reason why any Illinois fan would be like, actually losing at High Point would be a good season. Like, so
Yeah.
I think this Illini season has officially somewhat lived up to expectations. I think you can put at least a B level on this season, and then now we're striving for that A mark, where the Sweet 16 and Elite Eight and Final Four potential are there. So I think we're officially at a B to B plus grade on this season, and now we see if we can extend that into an A and it meets expectations kind of thing. If we're talking corporate language.
Yeah, I think it all depends too on how Illinois finishes out versus Houston. If they get blown out, I'm sure the box is going to reopen again, and you're going to say, "Hey, you beat 2 teams you should have beaten." And then once you played a legitimate team, you got your butt kicked in, and you only made the Sweet 16. When you have NBA players on your team, blah blah, what have you. If they win, obviously that's great, and if they lose closely, it might be a kind of a different kind of narrative, so to speak, if you will. Hopefully, there's no blown leads or anything like that. But we're going to talk about Houston in later episodes this week. We got a special guest coming on, hopefully, and maybe Robbie Nardini, should he think that we're cool enough to be talked to. But what are some of your early thoughts about the Houston matchup in Houston? Brad Underwood versus Kelvin Sampson, Keaton Wagler versus Kingston Flemings. It seems like a Final Four matchup, if you will. But what are your early thoughts about the Illinois Houston matchup on Thursday?
I mean, I played a little Bill Simmons with myself, like guess the line, and I thought it was going to be a 6.5 to 5.5 point spread on Vegas, but it was only Houston by 2.5 points, and that really showcases to me that it's 2.5 points simply because it's played in Houston, and that environment will be a raucous Houston environment. That also tells me that Vegas thinks Illinois can potentially win this game because they don't make spreads that tight with expectations that Illinois is going to get blown out or lose by 8 or 9 points. So I think Illinois has that height advantage, and Houston really is just VCU on steroids. And like you said earlier on in this podcast, it feels like the style of play you kind of have to mimic what you did in that second half against VCU, and I think that's going to dictate a lot of what Illinois' success rate is in this game. Do not take those threes. Do not settle for jumpers. Drive into the lane. Really force the contact. Make the referee's job hard. Really focus in on Tugler. I know he's a great shot blocker. He had how many blocks? 3 against Texas A&M this past game. So if your bigs are able to withstand that back to the basket and really make Tugler's job difficult, I think Illinois has a really really good shot of winning this game because you look at Kingston Flemings, who is a great freshman. He only had 9 points against Texas A&M in that blowout. So I think there is a legit opportunity here that Illinois can withstand this and potentially Elite Eight matchup with Florida or Nebraska, which would be kind of insane.
Yeah, shout out to the Huskers who played one of the best games at this NCAA tournament thus far. I think for Houston, preliminary thoughts on them is that you have to utilize your multiple ball handlers. They're going to pressure you a lot. It's kind of like what Iowa State did to that 23-24 team a couple years ago, where they're really, really pressuring. You have to make multiple passes to get through their pressure kind of defense. And they're going to hit the offensive glass really, really hard. So that's something that Illinois needs to be ready for. And it would bring Illini fans no bigger joy than to beat Kelvin Sampson in a game in the NCAA tournament, especially with what Kelvin Sampson has done in Illinois past history, and similar to kind of what Bruce Pearl has been. Kelvin Sampson, great coach, but not a fan, to be quite honest
Yeah.
with you. And I don't think many people are in Champaign. So hopefully you can beat them. But I'm just really proud of this team for getting through the first weekend and making it to a Sweet 16 despite the end of the season kind of losses.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, this was a season that very well could have gone off the rails rather quickly. And again, kudos to Brad Underwood for keeping it all together enough to make the run, build the confidence up against Penn and against VCU. And now you're in the Sweet 16 position where literally anything can happen. All of these matchups without these Cinderella stories that you see in this bracket are going to be phenomenal games. Like we're going to get Izzo versus Cronin or Hurley coming up. We have Patino against Self today, and the winner of that gets number one seed Duke. I mean, Nebraska is a big time long term story, Cinderella storyline, just because of Nebraska's program history. They're going to be probably going up against Florida coming up. We got Kelvin Sampson against Brad Underwood and Iowa State versus Virginia potentially. And today we have Texas A&M, Alabama for the chance to play against Michigan, the number one seed. I mean, this is why I love this NCAA March Madness this year. I know a lot of fans are like, but we haven't seen the upsets. We haven't seen the Cinderella stories enough. Well, guess what? We're setting up for some big time 2.5 point kind of spread matchups in the Sweet 16 and in the Elite Eight and Final Four moving forward. This is going to be such a fun weekend coming up and even a great day to end this round of 32 for the men's side.
Yeah, agreed. I mean, despite it being a little bit chalky, you would rather have the big boys play. And I think that's what's going to sell more rather than a one seed playing a Final Four versus a High Point or, one of those smaller teams. Even though it's a cool story, you would rather have a Duke, Michigan, and a Houston, Florida kind of ordeal going. So you have the best of the best. I mean, just
Are we
think
sure we
about
want?
that.
Are we sure we want Houston, Florida?
Actually, no, we don't. I misspoke there. But I
Okay.
mean, look at the Nebraska Vandy game. That's a 4-5 game, and it was arguably the best game at the NCAA tournament thus far. So, really cool stuff in March, and that's why you love it, and that's why it's one of the best times of the year. Any final thoughts before we put a cap in this one?
Yeah, Vanderbilt, Nebraska was incredible. What a game that was. And then Illinois, just kudos to Andrej Stojakovic. He was definitely the MVP of this game. And then Big Z getting the Illini, the TikTok love with his monstrous block and dunk. So very cool to have Illinois in the line in the spotlight. I think that's the biggest thing about getting into the Sweet 16 is having that extra week of Sports Center talking about you, FS1 talking about you, the Pat McAfee show talking about you. Even in the predictions of this Illinois Houston game, there are probably going to be a lot of Houston predictors here, but to at least have your name in that conversation is so vital to the brand. And Josh Whitman is just building this brand in such a great way, and it's only going to keep getting better with more experience, more wins. Wins typically stack on top of wins when you have great leadership, and that's what this entire team of Illinois athletics has between Josh Whitman, Brett Bielema, Shauna Green, and now Brad Underwood getting into his second Sweet 16 in 3 years.
Yeah, shout out to Shauna Green and her crew as well. They played Monday. The time, I'm not sure off the top of my head, but it'll be on our
I think
social
it's
media
7
pages.
Central.
7. Okay. And then Illinois basketball Thursday. I don't think we have a time yet. So tune in and be sure to subscribe to our channel for the Armchair Illini podcast. Again, we got some special episodes coming, even some football stuff coming with the guy sitting next to me right now. So be sure to be subscribed. Check out armchairillini.com. Check out Armchair Illini on all of our social media pages. Appreciate all you guys continuing to tune in to us. Shout out to Campus Inc.'s official NIL store. Use code Armchair Illini for 15% off. We will see you guys in just a bit. But until then, ILL.